Perfect.
Okay, we're live. The meeting is yours, Mr. Chair.
Okay, thank you. I'd like to call the Thursday, May 27th Planning Commission meeting to order. Wendy, will you do the roll call, please, and give your name and your city state?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Magro,
Here in Milford.
Kashkarian,
Here in Milford.
Davis,
Here, Milford.
DeVry,
Here, Milford.
Rishka,
Here in Milford.
Mazzara,
Here in Milford.
Latka is absent. Malin
Here, Milford.
and Gilo.
Here in Milford.
You have a full quorum, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, thank you, Wendy. I'd like to discuss the approval of the agenda as written. Do we have any discussion with respect to that? Hearing no discussion, we'll accept a motion to approve as written.
So move.
Second,
Support.
Second.
all in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Can we get the zoning board of appeals update, please?
Surely. Last meeting was May 12th. We had 3 items on the agenda, all dealt with accessory structures in the front yard, either on a corner lot or between the house and the main road. First was V 20-007, 3476 West Buno Road. It's in the R1S district. And we had already approved this person's variance request in September of 2020. And they were asking for an extension till November of 2021 due to issues with building supplies and the builder himself. So we approved that extension. Second was V 21-003, located on 1375 Old Plank Road. This is also an R1S zoning district. And the applicant proposed to put a detached accessory building between the house and the street. The uniqueness of the property, it's on an extremely steep grade up to the house. And then it kind of flattens out and then drops straight back down into the backyard into a septic field. So there was really no place else that this person could put in his proposed garage. He's going to house his boat in it. So we approved that one as well. Third, V 21-004, located on 1000 South Duck Lake Road. It's in the R1S zoning district. The applicant proposed to have an existing accessory structure remain on the property and install a larger garage due to the fact that there was a private road created that caused a dual front yard situation and affected the location of the garage they wish to rebuild. Also, there's problems with the power lines going into the property, which limited where this new garage could be put. And we approved that one as well.
Okay. Thanks, Neil. Bill, do you want to give us a rundown on the board meeting? I think you're muted, Bill.
Or that's on our agenda for tonight.
You were
All we
muted,
caught
Bill.
was the last few words you said there, Bill. You want to try it again?
So there was only one issue on the agenda, on the board agenda, and that was the discussion of outdoor storage. And the board approved the planning commission to enter into that discussion.
All right. Very good. At this point in time, I'd like to ask for public comment for non-agenda items. Do we have anybody in the public right now other than
No callers at the moment.
no callers? Okay, so I'm gonna move on from there. Okay, let's discuss some new business. Now, the understanding is that tonight is the discussion for the commissioners only. And so I'd like to start out with the discussion of the King Ranch use determination. And I'd like to open it up to commissioners to discuss that. Does everybody have a full and complete understanding of what the King Ranch use determination is about? Does anybody have any questions about that? Okay. Like I said, I'd like to start out the discussion with the commissioners. And Bill, do you want to make any comments at this point?
Mr. Chair, can I just inject, since you had public comment for non-agenda items, if the applicant wants to speak to this, because it is an agenda item, I know this is planning commissioner discussion, but if the applicant wants to speak, then they should be provided the opportunity to do that as well,
After we've had all of our discussions, right?
in whatever order you want.
Yeah, I'll let him, the applicants that are on that represent King Ranch, I'll let them listen to the comments, and I think then he'll have a better feedback for us. So anyway, Bill.
I really don't have any issues based on the letter from the attorney on May 10th. She indicates that it's a permitted use. It could be a permitted use.
Okay. Jim?
My position really hasn't changed from last time. Is that I know it can create issues what we're trying to do, but at the same time, looking at the satellite photo, it looks like it's a similar use to what's on both sides of it. It wouldn't be any different. I don't know what that creates for us going forward in other issues, and I think that's why we're going to talk about this in general later on today.
Okay. Thanks, Jim. Miles?
My opinion is kind of stays that outside storage in the M2 district kind of makes sense. It seems like that was set up with the idea that if you're going to do any outside storage, that's where you should do it. And it seems to have a history of that. The only thing, and what's there, as Jim said, sure looks like it's been done before. The only thing we might want to talk about is screening. So I think outside storage, even without a principal building, is fine in M2. And the thing that might make it more interesting is what could be done to make it look a little visually, not so, like it does.
Yeah, I think those are good points, Miles. I think when it comes to the details of that, we'll definitely get into screening or anything else that we can do to, reduce the impact of something like that, if indeed it does ultimately get approved. Vaughn? Vaughn, you're muted.
I'm sorry. I agree with what Miles said. I really don't have anything beyond that.
Okay. Neil?
I'm in agreement with everyone based on the Baker-Olowski letter that we received.
Okay. Mark?
I'm here, keeping in line with everyone else. It looks pretty straightforward.
Okay. Julie? You're muted.
As much as I hate the idea, our hands are tied. So
Tend to agree. Yeah, it's not about what we like or don't like. It's what the ordinances support and the findings of fact, as we've
Right.
always said. So I
That's right.
appreciate the comments. With that, I will give the applicant, I don't know who from the applicant side would like to discuss this. Jim, do you want to do it, or Brian?
Brian,
I'll let Brian go.
I appreciate you giving us the floor. I'm really good. It sounds like we're following Jennifer's in the ordinances. What's fairly clearly stated there. I know you guys are going to talk about the future and all that, and that's understood. But it sounds like our site plan as presented is in the ballpark. So if we're not going to discuss that, I'm good. Jim, did you have anything to add?
No, I concur with Brian as well. We were hoping to get the site plan in review for today, but understanding the situation, and Wendy was a big help earlier in the week and kind of helped educate me that you guys needed to have the opportunity to review the attorney's letter. So it was nice to actually be able to talk to her and get an understanding of what you guys needed to have. So with that, I'm all set. So thank you for the opportunity.
Okay. I think we've pretty much run the string out on King Ranch use determination. Any last comment from any of the commissioners before we close that out? Hearing none, I'll move on to the discussion of outdoor storage zoning ordinance language. To start out, Bill, do you want to start out this, or do we want to let Sheree?
No, I think Sheree should go through her.
Yeah, she's done a really good job of analyzing it. So why don't you give us a recap, Sheree, and make sure everybody understands.
So I think the intent was just to identify, what we want with regards to outside storage. Do we don't want it at all, or do we want to allow it in certain districts to provide that flexibility, or how do we want to regulate the outside storage so that, it doesn't become an eyesore, doesn't turn into a junkyard, and then and it is screened well so that, the surrounding properties are not impacted as well. So we've seen the Planning Commission has looked at 2 use determinations in the last 2 Planning Commission meetings. And I feel like the Planning Commission is on board that the current ordinance doesn't give us many opportunities to regulate the screening or how we want to see open storage moving forward. So a couple of items we identified in the memo for discussion was then the last page towards the end. There's 2 ways to go about it. The first one is just a simple, very quick amendment that just says that all outside storage shall require a principal building on the same lot or parcel. What it does is it would eliminate standalone outside storage in the township without a principal building. But if we're going to talk about it, our recommendation would be something, maybe also consider some extended items, such as when we say shall require a principal building, do we have to specify a minimum size requirement for the principal building or a use inside the building? Because it can as well interpret it as, a building. And the other items we're up for discussion is that I know in the township, we do have some areas where it's outside the sewer district. Those might, if we want, the Planning Commission may wish to consider if we wanted to permit outside storage in those areas where which do not abut residential districts and outside the sewer district, to allow a flexibility for some of the property owners in those areas. And what kind of screening requirements we would like to have for these outside storage requirements. And then we talked about this a little bit at our last audit meeting, requiring irrigation system for landscape maintenance because the current ordinance doesn't require one. And then we end up having applicants plant the landscape but not maintaining them for a healthy growth. Like Commissioner Mazzara indicated, this was presented to board, and the board has indicated that the Planning Commission should further discuss. So if you could provide us with input for those questions raised in the memo, we can do a little bit more research in the surrounding communities, how they are dealing with this, and then come back to Planning Commission with further discussion with more information to draft some language. I'm here if you have any questions. I'm here on standby.
Okay. One of the things that I wanted to make clear too is that we're looking at reconsidering and trying to recraft these ordinances so that they do a better job of supporting the master plan. It's not about like or dislike. It's not about whatever. And there are some issues with that, of course. But we're trying to support our master plan, and that's the core of it. I'd like to get some comments from the commissioners. Miles?
Yes. A little bit of background. I for years worked with SAE, Society of Automotive Engineers, writing specifications. And one of the things they pushed or taught me was not to be design restrictive. And what I'm getting at is we tried to say that the components have to meet these performance requirements, but we didn't say how to get there. So okay, now why did I bring that up? Because we're talking about having planting last longer and thinking that irrigation is key. Well, there's a lot of keys. I think that if anything doesn't grow, it's probably because it's the wrong plant in the wrong place. So rather than get into those details, though, I think it would be more appropriate to give a requirement that the landscape not die off. Then if you want to plant the wrong plant and irrigate the hell out of it, that's fine. You could do that. If you want to be a little bit smarter and plant a native plant and something that likes to grow there, then that's another way to solve the problem. But our job isn't to say how to solve the problem. It's to say, we'd really like some screening here.
And solve the problem.
Yeah.
Good point, Miles. Good point. Jim? Jim, are you there?
I found it.
There you go.
Thanks. I would really like to hear it first, I think, from Julie or Bill, because they have more history on this than I do, okay? And I only have really the history of looking at the two we've had recently. And in both cases, I looked at it and saw what was around it and said, yeah, it makes sense. But I know that it's not going to be the case on every one of these. And so at some point, we're going to look at it and say, no, we don't want to put it there. And have we gotten ourselves into a position where we're going to have a hard time justifying that? That's why I think we need to rewrite this stuff. I agree with it. I think that the people, because I know when we go back to the previous one, both Julie and Bill I think they were leading the charge on saying, hey, let's not get ourselves into an issue like this.
Okay.
And so I guess I would like them to, give us a little background and help me a little bit there.
Okay, Jim, I'll tell you what, I'll circle back on you and I'll have Bill give us a rundown.
Well, it's been a long time since this ordinance has been here. And this ordinance was written by a consultant and reviewed by an attorney. But this came about as a development that took place on Fike Drive, all of Fike Drive. That's why in 2001, the old ordinance was revised. And these conditions, as the ordinance states, were to be thought of at that time. I don't know what's changed in the thinking, But at that time, these were conditions that were to be applied to a permitted use. There was never intended that we would have outside storage as a permitted use. You'll find very few communities that even allow outside storage. So I think there's issues with it. I would definitely want to see some, if the confusion is over the word principal building instead of principal use, I think there should be a building on site and there should be a business on site. So a business that, to me, I'm not an attorney. I don't know the legal definition of the word business, but it means where business is transacted. Something's happening there. It's not just the storage of stuff. And the business can't be storage. So in one situation, there was an applicant that came in and his business was the business of storage. That's not similar to me to any of the permitted uses that were out there. So I think the whole goal, and I think a lot of people that have commented on this thought that I shouldn't say a lot of people have commented on it, always thought that there was a building. Do you know that we had one applicant put brick on a mobile home one time to comply to this ordinance? So as far as that goes, how big of a building? I don't know if you can actually dictate how big of a building someone has to build, but it should be a building. It should be a business. There should be some type of value there. The police have to review it. The fire department has to review it. I haven't seen any of those reviews. I'm sure they'll come later. So that's one aspect of it. I did look back through the ordinance. There's only two of our districts that even have the words similar or nor more objectionable. That's M1 and M2. So I wonder why. I mean, if I have a similar apartment or similar R1 use, why can't I use it? So I think having a principal building is a key portion of it. This was really put together in conjunction with a very active citizens group at that time. The citizens group was all up in arms because of the amount of noise, even from the backup beepers of these vehicles right next to residential. And all of that was tried to capture in these conditions that are out there right now. Height of equipment, that was part of it. The height of the equipment. I don't know if anybody's had a chance to look at Dan's excavating lately. And I do want to hear from Tim as to the problems that we're having with outdoor storage. In terms of the screening, obviously we'd want any of the uses that are in that district screened in accordance with the ordinance that we have in place. On the landscaping component of it, our ordinance already says the plant material is to be maintained in a viable living condition. Now, we did go back to that later because we came up with an appearance ordinance. And in parking lot islands, we do ask for irrigation, but we don't really ask for it in terms of the landscaping for the same reason that Miles just stated. Water doesn't solve all the problems. In fact, you can kill the plants with water. So the whole thing is, I'm not going to tell someone how to water, how often they have to water, or what an irrigation system does. They have to make the plants viable. We also had an issue in which these people are on wells. And so depending on your landscaping and how much water it takes, their well may not be able to put out enough pressure to deliver that water. That doesn't give them any right not to maintain the plant material. They have to maintain the plant materials in the ordinance. So I don't see why irrigation is that. I mean, if the owner wants to maintain it and thinks irrigation will help, that'll be great. But even if you have irrigation and you don't turn it on, plants are going to die. So I think, just to recap that real quick, I think there should be a principal building on site. I think the use of storage should be as stated in there. It should be accessory to the use. So if the use has a need for storage, that storage is defined by the conditions. And as I said, with the landscaping, the irrigation and all that, it's in there. I don't see why it would hurt to say have irrigation, but that may not solve the problem. I would like to hear from Tim, because as I drive the township, our outdoor storage has not worked out well anywhere. Very few places can I see where the gates are closed, the storage is not visible from a right of way. Tim, I mean, what happens when you issue tickets? You're muted.
Tickets are mostly for storage where it's not supposed to be. Every bit of storage in the township is visible from the road. I don't know how, his screening for that site is 4-foot trees. So you're gonna see everything in Dan's excavating from now till it'll always be visible. Tickets in the township are mostly for violations of where the storage is, front, not part of the plan where they didn't have storage and then they add storage. That's where Dan's is now with his, law, his case in court. We haven't come to that yet in Dan's excavating. They were mostly trying to solve the problem. They still haven't installed their fencing. They were putting things on the property prior to finish. Fike Drive, we just try to keep the stuff behind the front face of the building. Some of the landscape requirements are in utility easements, and they don't allow for the trees in the utility easement, so the trees go away. They're proposed in there, but then they can't be installed in the utility easement, or they're removed in the utility easement. That site at the end of McCarthy Drive, they took out, 60 trees that were in that 90-foot utility easement for those overhead lines. Every tree that was planted to screen from the Robertson site was removed by the power company. So, and they're not getting replaced. So there's zero screening on that site. I just think there's the thought that we're going to landscape things from the street to hide storage, and it'll never happen. You'll always see the storage.
Thank you. And when you look at it, I agree with them. Look at you're trying to hide exterior storage of heavy equipment, trailers, modular homes with a 6-foot high fence. The ordinance calls for a 6-foot high fence. Some conditions, I think it's 8 foot.
Yeah.
Then you're allowed a berm that you could use a combination of a berm and landscaping. That excavator on Dan's site, and the excavating is probably 14 feet tall, dropped down to nothing. So it's hard. Closing the gates up front and everything, it's just very cumbersome. And I really do think that outdoor storage, as was said by Jim, is hard to say where it is. I don't want to serve as a deterrent for a company to come in with a nice building, with a nice site, and bring a nice, industrial image to our community that we don't have. We don't have it primarily because we don't have water. But now you're starting to see nicer developments come into the industrial area. And they won't come in if they have to entertain their clients next to a dump. That's all I got. That's all I got, George.
Sorry about that. I was muted. Julie?
Yeah, I kind of feel like we have enough outside storage. Tim's having a hard enough time with enforcement. We've been dealing with outside storage for a long time. I honestly would like to see an ordinance written where we're done with it. We don't allow outside storage anymore. So that is something that I'd like to discuss, and that is to say our community no longer allows outside storage. But we've got plenty. We've allowed it enough, and every time we do it, the screening either dies or fails or gets removed and does not get replaced. Enforcement isn't happening. We're ending up going to court trying to get people to do what they're supposed to be doing, what they said they would do, and they're not doing. So I think we're good with outside storage.
Okay, thanks, Julie. Good comments. Jim?
Hey, George, can I
Yeah,
say
I'm
one
sorry,
more
Tim.
thing?
Sure, go ahead, Tim.
In the past, the township has approved for a M2 use that has a storage yard behind it. I don't want to say store, as part of the building, it's got area in the back for storage. And they've allowed that use on that property to sublet his yard for storage. So he's then in the leasing yard space business to guys. So it's unrelated to his business, and we have other things, that it turns the entire site into storage because it, maybe one person doesn't have that much stuff, but then he sees the opportunity that he can lease his yard to other and completely fill it. That's Door Doctor that said we can, you can lease portions of your back space, so he leases yard space. That's just this accumulation of things on sites. It's just impossible to control. And if you said yes to one person before, 4 people on Fike Drive lease their yard out. And it just keeps going and going. You can't stop it. I'm done.
Yeah.
Does anybody have
Yeah.
a chance to drive down Fike Drive recently?
I
I
tried.
strongly suggest all the commissioners do that.
I don't know what was wrong with I was looking at my phone. I was trying to find Fike Drive and I couldn't find it. So afterwards, you and I will have to discuss it, and I'll go out there because I do want to see it. We've referenced it a number of times as probably the pinnacle of bad management. And I'd like to see it personally. I would suggest the other planning commissioners try to do the same. So anyway, Jim?
Is there a call to the public, or is there a time when I might be able to just chime in? And if not, I totally respect that, but
This is a general discussion about storage in general. This isn't about, I'm assuming that when we talked about King Ranch, that you had a chance, to speak your mind. This particular issue is not about King Ranch or any of the other ones. It's about supporting our master plan as a whole with our ordinances to make sure we don't have holes in our boat, that we're able to deliver our master plan to our residents and our businesses, so that that it's a very, very well understood. So That's,
Understand.
I- At
If
the
I
end-
was,
go ahead, I'm
I-
sorry.
if I had the opportunity, I would love to share, not related to King Ranch at all, but just share my side of it as a business owner and as a landowner, if it's appropriate.
Okay, how about if I give you a couple minutes after we get all the other planning commissioners? And
Sure,
then
no problem.
I'll give you a couple minutes and I appreciate the input, Jim, really, but.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, let's see. Now I'm gonna try to get to Jim one more time. Jim, are you there?
I'm here.
Okay.
Again, as I even mentioned the other day when we were talking, that I think this is one of the issues. I think of anything that's on the board that we're not aligned on, or we're not, maybe we really are more aligned than we think. We're just, our hands are tied. So I love the input from, Bill and Julie. I just don't have that background. And Jennifer probably is going to want to jump in at some point here and tell us legally if is the door already too far open to close it.
Well, I think that Jennifer's written a very well-worded letter as to her opinion. So again, at this point in time, I really do want to make sure that all of the planning commissioners are heard. So anything else, Jim? No? Yes? Okay. Mark?
Yeah, my only comments would be that, as I drive around and look at the outdoor stores in our community, I am rather appalled at some of it. I just really feel like the ordinances are being abused, and I really am thankful that I don't live adjacent to one of those facilities. So I guess I would have to agree with Julie that I would like to see a way where we can just put an end to it completely, but I don't know how you go about doing that.
No, it's, that's going to be part of our discussion. So thanks, Mark. Neil? Unmute.
Well, getting to know more of the history on it, I understand. But I think that if we're going to have outside storage and try and keep it under control, then it has to be adjacent to the main business activity of the people that own that lot. And it can't be just a storage only business. It has to be a principal business that has storage as a part of their business, not their whole business, if that's the way we're going.
Okay. Thanks, Neil. Vaughn?
I think, one of the big issues obviously is impact on neighboring areas and so on. The thing I'm a little bit confused on is I don't think it's as simple as saying put a building on the property, or even saying it has to be part of the primary use. I mean, does Dan's have a building on their property?
Two.
Dan's? Two. Okay, they've got a building on their property. The equipment is part of their business, right? I mean, they're a excavating company. And yet it's one of the worst, from what everybody said, it's one of the more serious problems we have. So I don't think just saying it needs to be part of the primary business at hand, or that there has to be a building on that's going to solve everything. I mean, it seems to me that if we're going to control outdoor storage, it's got to be controlled not just for something that's independent of the primary use of the primary business, but even if it's part of the primary business, we have to find a way to define it. Because otherwise, I think we're frankly kidding ourselves. And we're going to end up with businesses with lots of outdoor storage, which is related to what they're doing on a day-to-day basis. In the wintertime, contractors and excavators oftentimes store their their equipment right next to their buildings. Understandable if we approve that, unless there's something that regulates that. And I'm not sure that that we've got it laid down enough, specifically enough that would address that without having to come back and look at it all over again.
Yeah, I agree with you, Vaughn. It's a very, very complicated issue, and it needs a lot of study. But one of the things that I fear is we have a tendency to overstudy things and not make any substantive changes.
Well, I agree with that, George, but by the same token, one of the reasons we're saying that we're back here now is because we didn't anticipate some of this stuff, right?
Well,
And so I think between our consultants and Jennifer and whoever else, we have to really do a total job and really understand of what we're trying to prevent. It's not just that we're talking about, we don't want outdoor storage from where it's not the primary business. Some of the conversation we're having is we don't want major outdoor storage, period.
Well,
and if that's the case, whatever we do needs to address that.
I agree. I think it's, we need to decide what we want to be. Most of that's driven by our master plan. And I think that Cherie is already, she's on the case, and she's trying to put together something that reflects pretty much what we've all been saying. So it's a matter of just getting to it. And that's why we're having the second meeting for just for ordinances, just so that we can get our house in order. So we don't do that. So at this point in time, I promised Jim that I would give him
George, just before you do that,
Okay, Bill, go
we could
ahead.
just
Sorry.
finish our conversation.
Yep.
And I agree with that, but right now there seems to be a hole in this boat. And just because one was permitted, now we have two that's permitted. And we don't have all the tools in the toolbox to stop what's going on.
Yep.
So I understand she's looking at it, and I don't, we all thought and agreed that we wouldn't take a lot of time, to do some things to correct this. And again, you're right, Vaughn, but there is no solution that I can see that would negate the impact of outdoor storage to the surrounding areas. The best view of it is to go down Old Plank Road and off to the east side, just walk through and look down into what we're looking at.
I'm not disagreeing with you, Bill. I'm not disagreeing with you at all. I'm just saying that could be the case with or without a building on the site, right? With or without it being part of the main business that's being carried on there. And maybe we can't do it all at once, but I think we at least have to sort of decide where we're heading and not just figure that, well, we're going to put building on and we're going to do this and that, and that's going to solve it, because I think we're going to continue to have problems. If we're all saying that's,
well, we've tried it with the building and it's not working to my satisfaction.
What are you thinking, Bill?
Pardon?
What are you suggesting?
Well, I said it in one other meeting and it really got a negative response. But communities oftentimes have to back up and take a look at what's happening in their communities and put in the right corrective actions to prevent it from going on. Right now, we have a problem with outdoor storage.
Right.
So we have to resolve that. Now, there's two ways. If someone can come up with other ways, that'd be great. But right now, we don't get anything as a community out of open storage. There's no increase in taxes. There's no sewer connection. There's none of this that's good for the community. We have a sewer out there that's got to get paid for, and we're not getting it paid for by people that don't hook up to it.
Right.
And that's a big issue. That's a huge expense out there that was given to us by the judge. So, I mean, that's one issue. So how do you screen something? How do you screen outdoor storage? And tell me why, if I drive down Pontiac Trail, Sheree, and as soon as I hit the Wixom line, the image changes drastically. Why is Wixom look good and Milford looks bad all the way down it? Now, we do have some new applicants coming in, but if we spend, more months, there'll be more people standing in line saying, I want outdoor storage. I want outdoor storage. And I understand what our attorney said. It just happened to be there at the time when it was written.
Mr. Chairman.
Go ahead, Jill.
Can we easily and I need to know what you guys are thinking. Can we easily make our ordinance be that we don't allow outdoor storage? Or Bill, are you saying you don't want to do that?
I do want to do that. I think Jennifer's got to get her, a say in this. Because I think if you change the ordinance to no outdoor storage, I don't want to create a bunch of non-conforming, well, you would create non-conforming uses.
Right.
And as you create non-conforming uses, what is the legal ramifications of that as you go forward?
Right. Mr. Chair, can Jennifer
Respond.
respond to stuff?
Yeah, if Jennifer would like to add something, I would appreciate it right now.
So I don't know, it would require a little more research if you can outright prohibit outdoor storage, because what you're doing is creating a situation where you don't provide for a use in any district in your township. And so an applicant that wants to come to you with some type of outdoor use doesn't have the ability at all in your township to do that, because you don't allow anywhere at all for that.
But
those are constitutional claims.
What if we already have allowed that much outdoor storage and there's just no more space for it?
So you've allowed it in certain districts, and like what Bill just said, what would happen is if you said, okay, up until 2021, we allowed outdoor storage in the M2 district, but we're changing it so that there's no outdoor storage allowed. Those are just non-conforming uses now. Those are just non-conforming lots. They're not they're lawful non-conforming, but they're non-conforming. So they stand alone. You still then are stuck with the dilemma where you have a community and a set of ordinances that doesn't allow for a use anywhere within that community. It's easier when it's a use like, adult entertainment or medical marijuana facilities, or, you'd have a little more difficulty meeting a challenge for outdoor storage. What I would recommend is, so to what Bill said about, going from Milford Township to Wixom, it very well could be you've got your M2 district abutting their research district, which doesn't allow any outdoor storage. But as having represented the city of Wixom in the past, they have a lot of areas with a lot of outdoor storage problems and a lot of industrial areas that are not pretty in Wixom. So I think it's not a unique problem to Milford Township, but my suggestion would be to really try and tighten up your regulations and your conditions. And we can do the best we can do. But like when Bill was mentioning the height of Dan's, years ago, Tim was trying to enforce against McAllister. That was their name, right? Same thing.
Yeah.
Their cranes too high, kept them too high. We fought them in district court over and over, and were successful in district court, and still he just did what he wanted to do. So the township ended up spending money, significant money, to pursue circuit court action against him. Don't have insurance coverage for that. They just pursued it. Were successful in circuit court, and he still went ahead and did what he wanted to do. I mean, my suggestion is to firm up your ordinances and try and be as restrictive and tight as possible. But at the end of the day, you can only enforce what the courts are going to help you enforce. And even then, you're still probably going to have bad actors like McAllister, who's just going to do what he wants to do anyways. So then the township just has to keep going back to circuit court and spending money on that. It's just...
Is there any benefit, Jennifer, in taking a look at our fine structure? I mean, in reality, if you write one person a ticket for $50, once a week for, at the end of the month, it's $200, and it's almost better than paying rent. But if you had a $50 and then a $500 and then a $5,000 kind of a step up, if someone continues to violate I think it gives the community a better position to enforce bad actors like McAllister. So if you go in there and you fine him $50 and it's no big deal, next time you fine him $500, he could probably absorb that. Next time you $5,000. And I think that we need to think about that as, you know, in terms of the fine structure, along with tightening up our ordinances so that we can deliver on the promise of the Milford Master Plan. And I don't know, you know, and I'm not asking you to comment on it because I'm just throwing that at you. And
well, you already have stepped up fines like that. And with zoning ordinance violations, every single day is a new violation. So you could literally, even if you stayed at $50 a violation, every single day you could write them a $50 violation. You just have to do that.
Mm-hmm.
You know, at the end of a month, that's a significant amount of money.
Yep.
They're not going to want to do that.
Yeah, but is McAllister a zoning violation? Or is that just a use violation?
Well, your
Zoning.
use
Is it zoning, Tim?
Yeah, it's all zoning.
Yeah,
Okay.
uses are within your zoning
Okay.
ordinance. So
All right.
it's all zoning. So land use violations, every day is a new violation. They could be cited every single day.
So Jennifer, George, our storage on the site plan is supposed to be called out where it's at and what it is for definite reasons for the protection of our own firefighters. So they know what they're going into. So we don't end up with a very large fire that we can't put out. What was that, 2 years ago? It cost the township money.
Yeah.
So when you talk about people leasing out uses, that's not on their site plan. So
Well, that's
we don't
something you
get
could
anywhere.
prohibit.
Pardon?
You could prohibit things like, you can have you could include things that require a principal building, which, you know, as much as possible, at least addresses somewhat your sewer issue. And it relates the storage to the principal building, the principal business of the property. You could put prohibitions in your ordinance that wouldn't allow that situation where, you know, you've got Door Doctor that's a, you know, garage door servicing facility and leasing outdoor storage to, you know, a sewer contractor. You could put prohibitions in your M2 district that wouldn't allow for that leasing situation.
A subletting.
Sublet, yeah.
Yeah.
That you could say like that the outdoor storage must be related to the principal use of the property, which requires a principal building.
I think that's a good place to start right away so we
Yeah.
can plug the hole.
Yeah.
Then we can continue to work on screening because we also had a situation in which it was simply mulch or it's simply topsoil screening. And the equipment that it takes to screen topsoil is 20 feet tall. So, you know, you take a look at our ordinance, and I'm going to shoot from the hip.
Oh, no.
Bill, you're going to have to shut your camera off.
I probably,
There you go. Now try it
I
again.
know, I got to turn off my video.
You said you're going to
So
shoot
bad.
from the hip. That's what we lost you.
So if we're able to make some corrections tonight and move forward with this, it would stop anybody else from coming forward because I keep going back to that ordinance and it sure looks like me that it was designed to be conditions for a permitted use. And those permitted uses are businesses. So I would be in favor of directing Sri to move in that direction, just as Jennifer said, so that we can get something on the books pretty quickly. And I know that Jim wants to talk right now, but I think this was intended to be a discussion between planning commissioners.
Okay.
I'm more than welcome to hear what he has to say, but I've been looking at this storage situation in the community go bad for 20 years.
I agree with you, Bill. And, you know, I know the thought occurred to me is that, we have work to do. And, we worked with Cherie and with the Giffords Webster. But I wonder if it wouldn't be appropriate if we could somehow manage to do a storage moratorium until we can get our act together completely. I mean, we can, I agree with you. We can put something through tonight that would help patch the hole in the boat. But I think on an ongoing basis, we need to do a real downtown job because
think
we're
we do.
confusing people. I
We
don't
need
want to
to
do that.
carry it further, but for tonight, I would like to see something put in place so it prevents it from happening tomorrow.
Okay.
Jennifer, can you do that?
No, well, I mean, you need an actual text amendment that would need to be officially introduced. So you'd have to do that at your next meeting because you don't have that in front of you. But I think Cherie has enough, and obviously she can speak for herself, has enough feedback from all of you this evening that she knows something that she could quickly put together for your next meeting to introduce to address this immediate issue.
Our meeting on
Could
meeting on the
that
12th.
happen at the meeting in 2 weeks?
the meeting on the 12th.
Sure. Oh, I don't know if you have enough.
No,
But wait,
No.
Mr. Chairman,
Go ahead,
Sri, if I may ask Sri a question really quick,
Sure.
because she already has the suggested underlined section of what it would say, correct, Sri? So we have it already we have the text amendment in front of us right here, correct, Sri?
That was the simplest way to deal with it, but I just hearing the planning commissioners, what they said, I was wondering maybe we can add a definition of accessory outside storage to that. But that could be perceived as the memo does make a reference to a amendment and then is asking you to consider if you want to move beyond that amendment. So
Right. So this amendment right here, can we use this, Jennifer and Sri, can we use this text amendment right here that she has on A, outdoor storage in the M2 general district shall be regulated by sections and shall require a principal building on the same lot or parcel. Bill, does that satisfy your plugging the boat, hole in the boat?
I think it's a step in that direction that if we can put something in place. Now,
Jennifer, can that be our text amendment that we can use right now to move forward and have public hearing next week or in our soonest as available? Mr. Chairman, can I ask Jennifer that question?
Sure, absolutely.
So you didn't list as an agenda item or publish that this would be an ordinance introduction.
Okay.
It was just a discussion. So you're going to have a problem with introducing an ordinance this evening.
Okay. I was
Mr.
trying to
Chairman.
make it go faster.
Also, we'll give you an opportunity to allow Sri to add a little more language to address, because right now we can address, I think it sounds to me like everyone's on board with the leasing thing too, with the outdoor storage must relate to the principal business of the property with which requires a principal building.
Right. Okay.
Mr. Chairman,
Miles?
just for the record, I'm not in agreement with several of those. Sorry, I'm Mr. Contrarian again. If I had a tree trimming business and had an immaculate house in, I don't care, whatever district, and everything was up to code and very nice, but I had a bucket truck, what should I do with that? I can't park it by my house. I wouldn't want to park it by my house. I want to keep that very nice. The M2 district, it seems to me, is the place where that makes sense. And I think that even the rental space could work as long as it's properly screened. And in this case, you pointed out properly screened isn't a 4-foot high fence. That doesn't do the job. I don't know what does, but I think just saying no outside storage is the wrong answer. Okay, I had my say.
Okay. Thanks, Miles.
I just
Somebody-
want to be clear that Shri understands everything too as well, because she's going to be preparing that text amendment for presentation at your next meeting, your next regular meeting, I guess. Tim, is that what you're saying?
Yeah, we got, well, it sounds like we didn't introduce it, so we can't set it for public hearing next month anyway. Right?
Could we,
Yep.
Julie's ready to make a motion that we set that text amendment that is in the packet for public hearing, and you're saying we can't do that because we didn't allow it to be introduced tonight.
You can have a public hearing at the same meeting that you do your text amendment introduction.
Okay,
You just hold your public hearing first, and then you have your text amendment introduction under new business. So that can happen at the same meeting. But I don't know the timing of publication.
yeah, we need the whole month to do it.
So it would be your regular June meeting,
so we couldn't do it on the 12th?
right?
Yeah, and
I wanna
Sri would
make-
have to work on that so we could get it, I think probably end of next week we have to have it.
But she needs to, I just want to make, she looks, you have some questions?
Yes, I had my hand up. I'm just waiting. I like to ask a few questions and summarize what I understand through chair, if this is the right time, if the planning commission discussion's complete.
I think it's a good time. I know there are other people who want to make comments, but I think it's probably a good point for you to do a little cleanup for us on
Okay.
this and make sure that we're communicating effectively.
So what I understand is that the planning commission does identify that we need to look into a lot of detail to regulate the outside storage, but at the same time, given the timeline, we want to probably split it into two different tasks. The first one is a very simple one, defining the accessory outside storage. And then the second one is where we would get into regulating other dimensional standards related to outside storage. Is that where you're headed?
I
Because-
believe that's true. Bill, is
Yes, that's what yes.
Okay.
kind of what I
Because
thought.
when I reviewed the ordinance a couple of weeks ago, I was in my head, I was thinking the best way to address this, maybe in phase one, not the phase two, not phase one, is first we need to identify, do we want to allow outside storage in M2 districts, outside sewer districts, so that we have some properties in Milford Township that would still allow. But by saying that they're outside sewer district, M2 zoned only, and not abutting residential, we are creating a small restrictive group, but we are not saying no completely. So that's one approach, that we identify a very small area, put some prerequisites so that it is still allowed, but not everywhere. There's strings attached. And then the other one when M1 is we can have a very, I was just, let me pull this up. Because while you were talking about this discussion, I thought, okay, this probably fits perfect with where we're headed. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, 1 second. I think I have two Word documents open. Okay, so this is where I was trying to work on this in another scenario where we're trying to define the accessory outside storage. We're seeing that it is clearly incidental, customarily found in connection with the primary use, located on the same zoning lot where the principal building is located. And then the storage is normally in stock in connection with the business. It's produced by industrial uses or related activities. And so it's like defining what that outside storage is, and that it has to be accessory to a principal use in a building on the same lot. Does that address the discussion the Planning Commission has tonight?
I think so, yes.
Okay. So what this is like the phase one simple amendment where we define outside storage. And then maybe around the same time, we can probably define the district and the use standards where it's allowed. And then maybe when we get into it much detail at a later amendment, we can probably figure out the location where it's allowed. If we want to have that as a certain percentage to the principal use. And, we can have some site standards that say you need to maintain a clear 20 feet for fire access at all times. We can get into, how do they keep it clean, drained, have gravel surface so that they're not storing stuff on grass. So those are the design and dimensional standards if you want to get into detail with phase 2. But just moving forward, I would say the two simple things we can do right now is defining the accessory use and then identifying the districts where that can be allowed. We can just limit that to M2. The other thing the Planning Commission may consider before we bring it back is, like, do we want to allow it in M1 if it doesn't abut industrial district and make it a special land use? Or do we want to just keep it to, because there are certain uses that kind of fit in M1 districts that may require some amount of outside storage, like a contractor business or some businesses. So if you say no accessory outside storage in M1, we might be restricting those uses that may require maybe a small amount of outside storage. So that's something you may want to consider. We could say that the outside storage in M1 has to be for new and finished products, or something that's going on in the building, or if they want to store something that is ready to be shipped, so that we allow some limited accessory storage in M1 as well. If you like where this is headed, I can provide some information at the next meeting in these 3 points, and then we can take it from there. So do you want me to discussion with all this information? Do you want me to bring back some language to move forward as well?
I think we want to get this rolling, which means that you have to have some sort of a text, at least for this phase 1 part, so that we can pass that on and get this to a public hearing for the next meeting, and then get it over to the board.
Are we meeting in 2 weeks, or is the meeting at the end of June?
End of June.
When I'm introducing.
Yeah, end of June.
But that's not a public hearing though, right? Because
Can be.
Can be.
Can be, okay.
If you can get this text amendment and get it over to Tim by at the very latest next Friday around noon. And
I
then-
can check with Tim and Wendy regarding the timeline.
Okay, that'll work.
Oh,
In that text amendment that Sri went through, I
Yes.
didn't see anything that precluded the use of subletting existing lots to other vendors for their outside storage. Are we going to put that in the text?
The initial text.
So the language says that it has to be accessory to the primary building on the same lot. So that means that you cannot use another person's property to store your stuff. So it has to be an accessory to the building on the same property.
Right. So the wording on this has to be absolutely clear, right? I mean, I would spell it out
Okay.
in complete detail that that's not permitted, if that's the way we want to go.
So it would be helpful, Shri, to do this, like you said, phase 1, phase 2, this text amendment that addresses the kind of immediate fill the hole in the boat issue.
Right.
But putting together a memo outlining all those talking points that you just stated about the M1 and the, special conditional land use and the everything, that would be really helpful, I think, for the commissioners to see some of the other areas that they could address.
I think what I was thinking in my head was that the draft will only have language related to phase 1, but the memo will summarize the points for further discussion for a potential future amendment.
That'd be great.
Mr.
Okay,
Chairman,
anymore?
do think that Niall makes a good point. If we've got to make it, and I know that planners don't like to make negative comments, but if we don't want subletting, just say subletting is prohibited. That's it, you know? So, thank you.
We can come up with language that says that instead of directly saying subletting is not permitted, but we can come up with language that. I guess I defer this question to Jen, if we can.
So I would say what you said, Sri, and add the subletting language, because sometimes it may not necessarily be subletting. It could be some other type of
Yes.
tenancy arrangement going on, or
Exactly.
so we need kind of the general language, Sri, that you've mentioned. And if you want to identify some specific, you know, property sharing relationships like subletting, you could do that as well.
Yeah, such as.
No shared outside storage.
Right.
There you go. Okay,
Thank
are
you.
we
That's all.
done? Are we done with that?
I think so.
Okay, I know you didn't want to do this, Bill, but I promised Jim that I would give
That's
him
fine.
2 minutes, and I'm going to give him 2 minutes. Even though it's supposed to be our discussion. Jim's an applicant. He's part of our community. So, Jim, I'm going to start my timer, and you can have your 2 minutes.
Great. I have a lot to say, but with 2 minutes, that's going to be a little struggle. So I totally understand with what you guys are going through. I sat on Wixom's Planning Commission for 14 years. I was a huge asset there in regards to all type of site plans and what have you, outside storage, their commercial district and what have you. I just wanted to just share this side of the landowner, which maybe some of you guys understand or realize it, and maybe some of you guys don't. And certainly the public hearing would certainly voice a lot more opinions. Just like Mr. Davis said, you know, having these type of restrictions where a landowner that has 14 acres or 17 acres of commercial property that he can't sublease it, or he can't allow somebody else to park there, seems extremely restrictive. There's multiple landscape companies in our community, asphalt companies, trucking companies, and construction companies that have partnerships and share vehicles, trucks. The asphalt guy does the asphalt and the concrete guy does the curbing, and they're in the same yard together because they're on a lot of the same properties together. So I think that's something I've just asked you guys to consider. One of the big things here, which somebody had mentioned, it might have been Mr. Mazzaro, had mentioned something like, what about Wixom? Well, I can take you to some places in Wixom that are outside storage, and you don't see a lot of them from the road, but they're definitely there. And it works. To eliminate outside storage, I totally understand some of your guys' thoughts and feelings about outside storage in your community, and some people don't keep it up. I own multiple properties in Milford, and you don't hear of violations from Jim Maher ever.
You don't.
And when you do, I hope that we don't go to court. Tim's going to call me and say, hey, Jimmy, we got a problem here, and I'm going to respect your community. So not everybody disrespects Milford, and there's a lot of great M2 properties, even in the district that I'm in, which the district you guys know is between Uno and Maple and Childs Lake. A lot of great looking buildings, and some that maybe I could see some frustrations. But one thing that I did, this is the important part, and I know I'm on a timer. Yeah.
You got to wind it up.
Okay. It's really a struggle here when in the community that I'm talking about, where we don't have city sewers, we don't have city water, we have mud roads, and we don't have any fire protection. It doesn't leave us the opportunity to build bigger buildings so we can put everything under one roof. So I think when you guys are talking about a district or something, thinking about that, I think would be important. And with that, I want to respect you guys' time. So thank you for allowing me to talk.
You're welcome, Jim. Yeah, it's good to have you. Let's get it back onto the meeting. Bill? Okay, you're good?
I'm good.
Okay, let's move on to the discussion of corner lot zoning ordinance language. I don't have any information on that. Sheree, you want to take us, or Bill, do you want to take us through the corner lot, or do you want to let Sheree do that?
Have Sheree do it.
Sheree, can you take us through the corner lot zoning ordinance language?
So I think this discussion came before Planning Commission because we had to deal with an issue at the ZBA level. Is that correct, Tim? Is that this is the same one, right?
This was in
Um,
court.
Not ZBA court.
Oh, right, the RV in the exterior side yard.
Yeah.
Yeah, there is a memo in the packet. From
Oh,
different
that's the RV? All right.
Yeah,
Sorry.
outdoor recreational vehicle, travel trailer storage.
Okay,
It
got
came
it.
up with just a short.
Yep, got it. Sorry about that. Anyway, go over it anyway, Sheree.
Okay, sure. This is something Eric put together, but I'm trying to pull in my recollections of the discussion that happened beyond this. I think our current ordinance says that all such vehicles or equipment shall be placed within a completely enclosed building or located behind the front face of the principal building. So the issue kind of started because the word face, front face of the principal building has multiple interpretations. It's not, so we're suggesting that we clean up that language and remove the reference to face and then make a reference to the yard, because the ordinance defines front yard and exterior side yards. But when you say front face, the question's like, how do you define front face? What is a front face? So
To me, that, I've listened to that before. And there's the front yard, the front face, the point, what direction you're pointing, what the address is. That's the front yard. That's the front face of the building. Front face of the building is not the garage. It's the front face of the principal building. I mean, to me, I concern myself is that we create lack of clarity where there is clarity, and we complicate it unnecessarily.
sorry, maybe I didn't say it the right way. When I said, when you say front face, you're right. That's how we interpreted that. And then we said, you cannot park an RV in the front yard where the front face is. But what happened was the ordinance doesn't restrict parking RVs in the exterior side yard. So it's a corner lot. It has frontage on 2 streets. And then the ordinance only restricts them from parking where the front face is. So we have nothing in the ordinance that says you cannot park on the side yard, which is the side face, but then the exterior side yard, and the RV is clearly visible from the street. So that's the clarification we were talking about, not lack of clarity for the word front face, but we have to be very specific as where we don't want the RV, unless the Planning Commission feels like it's okay to have the RV in the exterior side yard, then that's a different question. But just to be consistent with how we've always considered exterior side yard as same as the front yard, it feels like we have to be consistent in where we allow the RVs, where we don't allow the RVs.
Okay.
So right now the court is saying that the language in your zoning ordinance as it's currently written doesn't really say no parking in both of what are traditionally considered front yards for a corner lot. You need to tighten up that language if that's what you want. If you want to prohibit parking in your front yard, a corner lot technically has 2 front yards, so it needs to say that, and it doesn't right now.
Okay. Go ahead, Julie.
While Davis is the host now.
Julie, did you have something to say?
No, I was just wondering what just happened.
Yeah,
I
don't know
think
what
Brian
happened.
left. We lost Brian.
Oh, there we go again. All right, we're back on the recording. Sheree?
I
Are you
think
done?
that's as simple as that. We do have front yards and double fronted lots where, the front yard and then the exterior side yard are the other yards. The restrictions apply equally to both. This is the only one which is not clear and consistent in that. The question before Planning Commission is, do we want to change the language so that we not permit RVs in the exterior side yards?
Planning commissioners and find out.
Would that include boats
Yes,
and snowmobiles?
yes, trailers, yes,
Okay. So it's more than RVs.
yes.
Yes, the question started because of RV, but yes to all of that.
Being on the zoning board of appeals, I would say over half of the items we review, probably closer to 70%, revolve around structures in the front yard of a corner lot or a lot that is by the lake, one of our lakes. It's just, it seems like we have to do something about it because it's just continually every month we're going through 2 or 3 of these, structures or some sort of facility located in the front of a residence on a corner lot.
So what happened was the way the ordinance is that it's allowed in the RV, but if we change the ordinance, hypothetically, if we say that you cannot park RV or similar vehicles in the front or the exterior side yard, and then there's a hardship, the applicant can still go to the zoning board of appeals to be able to request to park in the exterior side yard. But with regards to the lakefront lots, that they are a whole another story. So that's one of the recommendations in the audit, that maybe you create a different set of standards for the lakefront lots, because we already are very well aware of their hardships. So they don't have to go to ZBA in such situations.
But the more we tighten up the language, just the more we're going to see variance requests into the ZBA, just so everyone's aware of that.
That is a good point, yes.
Miles? Need to unmute. There you go.
Yeah, I'm mute. I guess I don't feel that strongly about this. I think just doing a good job of defining the corner lots have 2 front lots and everything else follows. I think that would be reasonable to do.
Okay,
Well,
thanks, Miles.
your zoning ordinance already states that corner lots have 2 front lots. It's the problem with this exact provision. So I guess there's really one question you need to answer. Do you still want to prohibit RVs and trailers, which includes all of those vehicles that we just decided, in both of the front yards of a corner lot?
Yeah.
If you do, then we need to strengthen up the language. If you don't, then we need to maybe change the language to make that clearer as well.
Why don't we poll it while you've asked the question? Can we do that, Sheree?
I didn't create a poll for that, but if you want to talk a few more minutes,
I'll do it right now.
But I do want to add one point to follow up member DeVries' comment, is that there are situations like transformers or generators where we say, they're not permitted in the front yard, but if it's a corner lot and if they can demonstrate that they cannot find a space in the rear yard, then the building official can administratively approve an alternate location.
Okay.
But in
All
this specific case in the court, they have ample space elsewhere on site to park the RV.
Okay, Wendy, can you give us just, do we want to continue to support both front yards on corner lots, or do we want to not? Per what Jennifer just referenced, can you do a roll call vote on that? Just a yes, no, agree, don't agree?
Is everyone clear that what they would be saying yes or no to?
No.
No.
I think so.
Okay.
So,
Jennifer, can you explain it one more time for us?
Do you want to prohibit RVs and trailers in both the front yards of corner lots?
Okay, well said.
All right, good. Now try it again, Wendy.
absolutely. McGraw,
I want to continue to prohibit RV or any other storage in both front yards.
Just a little clarification. We're not continuing. We're going to start prohibiting.
Okay, we're going to start doing, okay.
Kashkarian,
Yes.
Davis,
Yes.
DeVry,
No.
Rishka,
Yes.
Mizera,
Yes.
Latka's absent, Mallon,
Yes.
and Gilo.
Yes.
Okay. So we have seven yeses and one no. Did I get that right?
7-1, yes.
7-1. Okay, so Sri, you have your marching orders?
I do. So do I take it as we're going to introduce and hold the public hearing because it's a straightforward amendment, the next meeting?
Yes. That would be a good thing because we can get that one out there too. I don't think that'll necessarily complicate our agenda, will it, Wendy? We should be okay.
Yeah, you should be fine so far with those two.
Okay.
And Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
she did already provide that language again on page 3.
Yes. We have it here. So we've got that. And that's why we should be able to go to public hearing in the end of June. Correct. Is that what you're saying, Julie?
Oh, yes.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Okay. Can we close up the corner lot zoning ordinance? Okay, I'll take silence as a yes. Let's move on to the zoning ordinance audit. Sheree, can you take us through that, please?
Not much. I think I'm wondering, there's not much to present, but I just wanted to gather input from Planning Commission. I'm hoping you all got a chance to look at the PDF that was shared.
Yep.
Via email. So what we did was we took the topics that were discussed, just category, like we divided them based on what takes more effort and what takes less effort from need to do to get something in front of you. And then after we got that, and then priority and low priority based on the input we received from Planning Commission at the last meeting. So what I want on
Your screen isn't sharing, so maybe you want to just take it down so we can, I think, because you're breaking up some.
Okay, I'll take the video off.
Okay.
So that's all essentially what I was trying to get at is, so we provided 2 exhibits. The first one talks about priority matrix, and then the second exhibit lists the current process we have from start to finish when we introduce a text amendment. I know we've heard some concerns at the last meeting that, we could streamline the process to keep things moving forward. So we have that laid out, and then maybe we can look at it and see if, streamline it, just like we did with the corner lot ordinance today.
Yeah. I think it's good because I was looking at this thinking this is a pretty daunting Rubicon. I mean, it's just, there's a lot of steps here, and I think we can clean this up. And maybe this is a topic for the meeting on the 12th too. We can try to clean that up some.
So I wanted to just do a quick poll. I don't know why I'm having trouble sharing screen, but if you guys can take your phones and go to www.menti.com, www.menti.com. It's mostly for planning commissioners. And once you're in the page, it asks for the code, then say the code 97496817. It's on the screen.
What was the,
It's on top,
oh, there,
97496817. So once you get in, it's an interactive question. So these just list the items that are we have set as high priority. If your planning commission feels like there's one item that's not high, it can be moved to low. Just slide it on your screen and submit the answer. I'll just take the screen off for just 1 minute. I wanted it just.
I don't get that to come up.
can you give the code
www.
again?
dot what?
Oh, it's not coming up?
Nope.
MENTI.
I misspelled it the first time.
So you just want us to move the slider over, right?
Right.
Sri, if we feel should be a
Right.
lower priority.
Yes.
Could I
But
see
right
the
now,
code?
everything's a high priority there.
Could I
Then
see
you
the
can
code
leave it, You
again?
don't have to do anything.
What was the code again?
97496817.
And I'm sorry, but I was wondering, could we maybe just get a one-line explanation of what the objective would be for each one of those? Because I don't have maybe enough history on these, but the word landscape doesn't mean much to me.
So the lighting was just trying to bring it up to the standards to remove references to old halogen lamps, and then bring it up to the LED standards, and then just bringing it up to the current industry standards. Landscape standards have to do with, we don't have many standards for interior parking lot landscaping. Like we don't require end islands at the end of parking lots, or just trying to bring some trees inside the parking lot, and then screening requirements and some standards for flexibilities inbuilt. And the lakefront lots is the one where we talked about, those are the constant items on the agenda, I understand, on the ZBA board, because they always have a hardship, whatever they want to do. So we're suggesting we come up with some language so that we can address it on an administrative level or at a planning commission level, rather than sending them to ZBA. PUD is, we all know about that. We were just suggesting that we combine the C2 PUD and PUD into one, and then just make it robust. The residential developments is where we suggested we combine the cluster division, and then the flexibility for preserving natural features, and then there's another third one. Provided that the township hasn't seen many applications, we recommended we just combine those into one flexible residential development option.
But Sri, to be honest with you, since 2010, we haven't seen many applications at all.
Right.
So prior to that, we would see most of our site condos come in with a lot averaging of some type.
Okay, so that's the lot averaging one is a little bit complicated, because the language says, and then in cluster development, the current language says that the lot sizes should be equal or exceed the underlying zoning district, which is not the intent of a cluster. The cluster allows you to reduce the lot size than the underlying zoning district. So I know we haven't received many, but we may anticipate one or two in the future because we do have some vacant lands. So that we're not in a position where we were with the PUDs, we could be proactive and tighten that up before somebody comes in and says, oh, I want to do a cluster. And then our cluster ordinance is 1 page.
Okay, part of that cluster ordinance was that the land mathematically that would meet the underlying zone ordinance that land could be designated in a certain area and set to be undeveloped land, such as Maple Lakes. So I think at Maple Lakes, there's 58. I don't know, there's a certain amount of acreage that cannot be developed in perpetuity.
Yes, I think the 3 current ordinances in the zoning kind of have the same intent, but some are more protective and some are more flexible. So the recommendation is just to revisit that to see if we can do what you just summarized.
Okay.
Are
So
you
we're all
able
done, we
to
just submitted.
see the results on the screen, or is it blank for you all?
I can see it. Looks like it's changing.
Right. If everybody had their questions, looks like then within the high priority ones, everybody agrees they're all high priority, but within the high priority ones, looks like signs and sidewalks. Sorry, PUD is the highest, looks like.
Well, PUD has 14.
1.4.
Oh, I'm sorry,
Yeah,
the line,
that's
like the
1.4.
left, if it's closer to the left, then it's high priority.
All right. I thought signs were actually something legally that we had to address.
Right.
Yeah.
You can ignore the numbers, just look where the bar is. Left is high priority and right is low.
And on signs, it's way on the low side,
Right, so I'm surprised at that too.
because that was something that I thought we entered down that legally because we had to.
Right, and that's what our planning commissioners, like, that's what they're saying, is that, like, when she took the poll, the planning commissioners said signs were a low priority. But we do need to address it because I mean, they're all high priority. I think we're just ranking them as far as what order of high priority they go.
Right.
Because on her chart, they're all high priority. It's just which one do you want to do first?
Yes. So looks like based on this, we want to hit the PUD ordinance first in the high priority list. Or if the poll's confusing, I can pull the ranking list. Maybe that might be easier. So the planning commission all agrees that everything on the list is right in the chart, right? In the matrix where they are for low and high.
Yeah, I don't see anything wrong with it.
I have no
Okay.
problem.
Then maybe I'll just take you to the other question if this one is confusing. Go to the question 4.
Sorry, how do I do that? I keep asking it to refresh and I get no answer.
I'll just delete the other slides.
So how do I go back to it? Or
Um,
refresh? No.
yeah, if you refresh, it should take you there.
Mine,
okay, I'm
I have been
refreshed.
hitting refresh and it didn't change.
It just did for me.
It
Me
just,
too.
Yeah, it's multiple press.
I apologize. This is my first time. My colleagues are more
All right,
handsy with this.
I just booted myself back off of this, so I have to go back into it.
What's the number again?
Oh, I'm sorry. I did something.
The code number.
I might have accidentally did something here. Okay, why don't we open it for discussion while I fix this? Just in the matrix, the first item, similar use determination and the unlisted use determination. Those are low effort ones, but high priority. Does the planning commission agree with that?
Yes, I agree with that.
Yeah, I do.
Yes.
Okay. I'm taking notes. I apologize about the Mentimeter. It didn't make a big impact like I thought. Maybe because of my own technical, I haven't worked with it much. Okay, so then we're looking at item 2 under lighting, landscape, all those items. Based on the one poll I was able to get through, looks like everybody's agreeing that the PUD should be top 1.
Sure.
What about, and then what could be the next one? I guess the purpose of this exercise was to identify, we want to come up with a chart where we identify some of these items and then say, okay, we're going to introduce this one at March 1st meeting so that we can aim for a public hearing at this meeting. So we have one chart that has all the items in the left column, and then the top row would be like, when are we discussing it? When are we introducing it? When do we hope to do the public hearing? So that we
Sherry, I
can,
just have some questions.
okay.
So if you take a look at quadrant number 2,
Mhm.
and the PUD is something that would be of a higher priority.
Right.
We've also talked about open storage, so that's bringing that to conclusion.
Right.
It appears that we're going to have to do signs just simply because legally we have to do signs.
Mhm.
The whole, so if I were to take those top 3 and start with open storage first, signs, and then PUD would be my thought. The lodging and short-term rentals, that may be decided for us here soon anyways, which looks very positive from, legislative, that they're probably going to go that way.
Okay.
These are, like you said, they're all important. The sidewalks are important to me, but I don't think it's something. If we don't do signs, are we in jeopardy of any other situation in which someone says our sign ordinance is no good lawfully?
I defer that to Jennifer, but it's definitely outdated, and Jennifer's memo does raise very good points. So we might be opening ourselves.
So you don't have any, I mean, Tim might be able to say if he's got any outstanding sign issues going on right now. I'm not aware of any. It's definitely something that needs to happen because your ordinance, if it were challenged, probably couldn't hold up. It couldn't hold up under the current standards. But it's not being challenged right this moment, so. It's not a good ordinance under the current law, and it wouldn't be successful.
If there is current law that indicates how we're supposed to regulate signage, then it's going to dictate, right?
Yes, and I don't even remember how long ago this was, maybe 2 years ago when I put together a memo. Pretty much, I think I went through every single section of your ordinance and explained where it needed to change and why.
So is our goal right now to actually prioritize this tree right here into something? I would go, how are we going to do, this is where we started with it. We need to indicate what we want to work on for our first meeting. Should that be open storage?
Yes.
Yeah.
So
can I just
We just had the longest, pardon?
Can I just say one thing about signs? I don't know if you guys even need to put that on your list because essentially we've already figured out where your ordinance needs to be changed.
That's what I
Right,
was-
we need to process, we need to go through the process to, hold the public hearing.
But like, we could very easily put together a sign ordinance amendment for you now. And so, like, I feel like if you want to study issues, the sign ordinance really isn't something you need to study because it's really just coming compliant with current law, and we've already figured out how you can do that.
Same
And-
with lodging and short-term rentals. I don't think we should spend any time on it until we know what they're gonna do, tell us what to do.
Well, you don't have any provisions for the short-term rentals now. Like, you do have sign ordinance provisions, but you don't have any short-term rental provisions now. So you're wide open with nothing.
I think what Bill's referring to, Jennifer, though, is that the state government's gonna take that away from us being able to do anything about it.
I don't think that's going to happen.
Well,
Oh,
I'm not sure who was on the distribution of that memo that I got and I passed on a little bit, but I don't know, was everybody getting it?
I think Wendy,
Did get it.
Wendy sent it to everybody and I did send a letter in, so.
I
Okay,
know it's hard to predict what it is, but if you listen to some of the discussions on that, it seems like it is going to go through. To me,
Oh.
we're gonna push it through because it's tourism, it's big dollars. So,
I think it's one of those, I think you're right, Bill. I think we need to just sit back and see what the state's gonna do. And then we can go from there.
If it does
That's not a burning
anything-
issue.
If the state does anything, it'll be like any of those other uses, and it'll say, you can't prohibit short-term rentals, but you can regulate short-term rentals. So, it's with any kind of similar use. That's
but you can't regulate them to prohibit them.
correct. I mean, that's not what it says right now, but that's what they're proposing. The state isn't going to put together zoning regulations for you for short-term rentals. What they're going to do is say, you can't prohibit short-term rentals, period. Fill in the blank with the rest of it, which is why you want to start looking at how do you want to regulate them? Because if the state does say, the state's not going to take over short-term rental regulations. They're just going to tell
Okay.
you, you can't prohibit.
But-
It just
but
doesn't
what-
seem to be a high priority right now, so.
Jennifer,
Me.
I don't, what the line, what it says right now, it says the bill would remove local government regulatory authority of any kind over short-term rentals.
So
I feel like we're getting off track. because-
Yeah, let's go back to prioritizing this.
Let me tell you, regulatory means licensing. That doesn't mean zoning. I just want
Right.
to clarify that for you.
So
Please.
that's why it's on our high priority list. It needs to be addressed, whether the legislature does something with it or not. We still have to address it because we have issues in the township right now as it is. So the sign ordinance, since we've already worked on it, can go into like more of a low effort category. Same with the lighting, but signs need to be addressed right away because it's a legal issue. And then, the PUD,
Open storage, PUD,
right. So
So
open
when we-
storage first, signs can be next, or, what was the other one you said, Bill? Oh,
PUD.
I thought there was another one.
Sidewalks.
But
So,
I mean, we're all talking about those top four. The landscape, the lighting, the PUD, outdoor storage. Those would be the first three.
Mr. Chairman,
Go ahead.
I think we're done, basically, because if we can, I hear a consensus on 4. That's going to take us a couple months. That'll give us lots of time to worry about the rest of them and to propose others. So we're done with prioritizing, I think, for now.
I think I agree. So at least these 4 will keep us busy.
Right.
And then when we're done with 4, then we revisit this matrix and then we pick another 4 from the pool and then we go with it.
Okay, that sounds
Can I-
good.
Can I keep going with one thing? The prioritizing was one slide. The second slide was, like you said, the Rubicon, the very difficult project, I don't think it has to be that difficult because we came to consensus last week that we're lousy at writing ordinances, and we're terrible. Take forever, and when we're done, it's not very good. But Sri and Eric and the team do a really good job. They're already in the process. Our job is to make the decisions on these. And we can do that. We can arm wrestle at a meeting, probably go through a couple of these and just say, yeah, okay, we come to consensus on, like we just did, front yard. That wasn't that tough. And it got us an answer. And then we throw the ball to Sri and Giffel Webster and they do the write-up. We're trying to make this too hard again. This is really a two-step process.
I agree, Miles. And I think that was one of the, if you remember what I said, this is a Rubicon, and we need to, we need to on the meeting on the 12th, I think it's going to be one of the topics of discussion. And I think that should get us there because this is goofy. I mean, 11 steps to, and you're right. We did it tonight so fast,
But I think that, George, this is what for the most part, this is what our township has set up. This is the process. This is what we have to do. There's no changing the process. This is how it's set up.
I think in the terms of how we get to a viable rewrite of an ordinance or something like that can be very, very, very quick.
Yeah.
But I don't
what
want
I was saying about why it takes us so long is because between the 9 of us, we argue about what words should be used or where a comma should go. That's what I'm talking about. This process that she has 1 through 11, that's the process. There is no changing it. There is no making it simpler. It's up to us to not argue about what words should be used. When Sri gives us a text amendment, and those are the words that are used typically in a smart planning wording for an ordinance, you can't second guess every single thing that she says.
Yep.
That's the problem. It's the 9 of us that's the problem, not the process.
All right.
And I think I like the fact that, I think this is the process. I like the fact that the township board will look at it as a whole and give direction as a whole. So it means one time it goes to the township board. And then I think there's 11 steps here, but some
2 are optional.
Planning, it will take time to have public hearing. It will take time to do that, but I think it does streamline it.
Yes.
Okay, so then I just want to make sure, I know we went through 2 lists. So if you're going to hit quadrant 2, do we hit the unlisted users first before we go to quadrant 2, or do we do the quadrant, go straight to PUD? So between unlisted use determination, I guess I like Member Davis's suggestion. I know we came with a different strategy, but I like what you suggested. So maybe how about Planning Commission pick 4 or 6 today, and then we make those recommendations to the board, like the phase 1 amendments. That way board can approve all those at one time so that we're not going to board for step 1 for each amendment.
Well, then, Mr. Chairman, may I?
Sure, please.
So we are already doing the open storage and this RV text amendment. If we can do the similar use and the unlisted use determination really quickly and have those all at the same time and give the board all 4 of those, can we knock those out right then and there?
I think board already approved the corner lot, if I'm not mistaken, because it's on your agenda. Did it or did it not?
No, I mean when we have our public hearing. I know that, but like when we have our public hearing on the 2, can we add the similar use determination and the unlisted use determination at the same time
for a discussion?
Well, we can discuss similar use determination and unlisted use determination on in 2 weeks, and then at our we can't have a public hearing that fast.
That's right. That's the snag. Yeah. Yeah, I hear you. It's,
But at our next go around, so we'll be done with the open storage and the RVs. At the next go around with the similar use and the unlisted use, we can add those to the PUD when we're doing all of that. Those are so fast. It's just a quick little text amendment. Those should be introduced at our next meeting for sure.
Maybe it's a question for Commissioner Mazzara. Did board approve the open storage phase 1? Did board approve the corner lot amendment, or do we have to go back to board before we come back to planning commission in 2 weeks?
The board did not approve the lot
Corner
change.
lot.
It was only open storage. It was the
Okay.
only thing that was discussed.
So the board hasn't approved anything because they just,
The only thing they said
Just
is that it could go to planning commission. I
Right.
used the
Yes,
word
that's
approved.
what I meant.
The
Yeah, that's what I meant.
the administration sent the RV setback to the planning commission because it came out of court, and the prosecutor had to dismiss tickets, and the code enforcement officer cannot enforce your provisions with, the court won't enforce it. So the administration said, send this to planning commission and get this clarified now. Didn't want to wait 2 months because we had to dismiss a ticket that the township wanted enforced because your language, the judge won't hold up your language.
So we can go ahead and work on it. It's the whole point of that.
Yes.
Okay. Then the recommendations that would go to board would be PUD, open storage phase 2, signs is third. Is that
Yes.
okay? And then do we do short-term lighting and landscape? Is that the order?
I thought
Yes.
we were just doing 4.
Oh, no, I was just wondering, the item 1 that
Yeah.
goes to boards where the board says, yes, the planning commission can work on it. Maybe we take a chunk to the board so that we take care of one in
Well,
one go.
we said we're only going to do 4 because
I
that'll
might
take
have
us
given
2 or 3
arbitrary
months.
number.
Yeah. Well,
So Shane, I have a question.
Okay.
Why don't we just send them the whole priority list
Yes.
one
If the
time?
board's okay with it, yeah, that would be awesome.
Yeah, because they'll be, I think that'd work fine. Just send the whole list
Okay.
to them. This is what we're working on. And if there's any objection to any one of these issues, which there won't be because they probably don't have enough information to object. They just want to let them know that we're going to be spending a fair amount of money doing this. And the last week I sent them a letter containing exactly what they said. Everybody on the board and the administrative was fully behind moving ahead with this quickly. So I would just send them the list.
Awesome.
all right.
Can I make one clarification because it's been said a couple of times tonight and we need this to be correct. The second Thursday of June is the 10th.
I said the 12th. I'm sorry. You're right.
Okay. So then the other question is, are those meetings going to be at 7 or 7:30?
Thought we agreed to 7 o'clock.
Thank
So
you.
second Thursday is 7, last Thursday is 7:30.
Correct.
What did you guys decide? Is this something where you're going to change your regular schedule of meetings? You're going to do this regularly?
We're
'Cause
gonna
Molly's
we're gonna
need to know
we're
that.
gonna do about 3 or 4 of these, and they're gonna be solely for the purpose of working through ordinances.
So you need some special notices, Wendy. You got to talk to
Yes.
Molly about
Yes.
it. Okay.
Yes.
So the second meeting is just for ordinance amendments, and then the
Regular
first
schedule.
meeting is, second Thursday is ordinance amendments, and the last one is for site plan. So
Yes.
if we want to hold a public hearing for a text amendment, would it be second Thursday? The
It's
next
going
one?
to have to be second Thursday in order to get the timing to get publication, and I will have to have them by Friday of next week, or
Okay.
they don't go. You've got 1 week. That's it for
So
publication.
got to have everything by the 4th of June.
I'm gonna fix the survey and just send can I do that, Jennifer? Let me know. Like, can I send that survey to the planning commission so that I
If we're
can
gonna,
get
if we're gonna send it all to them, why do we have to survey it?
just
mean,
to
we already know
reorder
what-
the priority list within each quadrant?
We've already gone through that, haven't we?
We
Added
just
nauseam.
gone through one quadrant. There are still 2 more left. So I thought I'll just simply.
Well, no, I don't know if we want to do that.
Okay.
Let's just send it all to them and let them make sure. Because, you know, we're spending a lot of time trying to get this prioritized, and we can't deal with it, most of that, for the next 6-8 months. I don't know why we want to spend this much time on trying to get that prioritized.
Time I sat down to prioritize the capital expenditure list for the year.
Yeah.
It only lasts for about a week.
Yeah,
And then
well,
another issue comes up. So it's a good prioritization list, but as we get started on it, you may see the priorities change. So I think as
Okay.
long as they know, we'll
We
move
can
ahead
keep it fluid. Yes.
and we'll keep it going.
okay. Alrighty, let's move on to approval of minutes. Does anybody have any additions or corrections to page 1? Page 2? Page 3? Entertain a motion to accept the minutes as written.
So moved.
Second,
I second.
Wendy, can you do roll call vote?
I sure can. Thank you. Davis?
Aye.
And Malin,
Yes.
Gilo,
Yes.
Mizera,
Yes.
Magro,
Support?
Kashkarian,
Yes.
and Debris,
Yes.
and Rishka.
Yes.
Now that we just went through all that, I have a question.
Can I finish this motion?
Sure. I didn't know. we wanted to
Let's,
discuss-
yeah, we have a unanimous approval. The minutes are approved as written. Go ahead, Bill.
I was hoping that during discussion, when we met, we agreed that we would take these minutes out of this meeting and put it into the normally scheduled planning meeting. So that's what this is right here.
That's what this is, yeah.
So there'll be reasons to find them now.
Yep.
Just wanted to make sure.
Yep, exactly. Okay. Planning consultants remarks. Any more, Sheree?
No, I think I got what I needed. We may just refine the audit to update the section numbers once we have the new clear zoning ordinance, because the
Okay.
current draft still refers to the old section numbers.
All right. Sounds good. Planning commissioners remarks. Bill, I know you've got something you want to share on the crossings.
Just to keep everybody informed about what's going on so that there's, everybody's aware of everything. Last week, there was a meeting with Milford Crossing. George, Julie, Vaughn, and I, along with administration, the building official, the planner, and the attorney, attended a meeting with the applicant. And the applicant wanted to discuss an item on the motion pertaining to single tenant. So the applicant came in hopes of getting some type of feel for changing the single tenant in the motion to being something different than that, where there could be 3 buildings or 2 buildings, and in those buildings, there could be a whole series of tenants. We expressed no desire to move in that direction. So we stated that it was in the approved recommendation. The township informed the applicant that they could write up what their request is and submit it to the board, at which time the board could make a decision or send it back to the planning commission and start portions of the review process all over again. So the applicant did try to come in and get that changed. I indicated that's not what we voted for. That's not what we talked about. And so I don't know if he will be coming back or not, because he didn't seem too receptive to starting the planning commission hearings all over again. So they're not all over again, but certain portions.
The
That's
commercial.
just to make sure everybody, we're meeting. I don't want anybody to think that we're meeting behind closed doors. That's what we discussed.
I just want to caution you that to have a discussion like this and to make those comments without the applicant being present, you're expressing the applicant's objectives on behalf of the applicant, and so you should be careful in doing that.
Just want to make sure that everybody knows what we're doing.
Right, so I understand.
Transparency is a key issue.
Correct, but speaking on behalf and using the applicant's words without the applicant being present is challenging.
So I could say, as I understood it. That's all I got.
Okay. All right. Any other planning commissioners have any remarks?
I just wanted to say the note you sent around, Jennifer and Sri, your package was very helpful,
Thank
I
you.
thought.
Okay, good. Miles, anything?
No further comment. Thanks.
Jim?
I'm just looking around here and I'm looking at all this paperwork that's piling up around me from the crossings in Kensington Ridge.
No?
When they come back in for, site plan and stuff, we're gonna get all new documents. Is that correct? Can this stuff be I want to keep a little bit of it. Tell me, how much of this, can I just dump it in the township offices, have them shred most of this that I don't believe or we're gonna see repeated? How have you guys handled it in the past?
I usually take them in and let them shred them. Wendy said to hang on to things that were going to come back again, but I think you're right. Most of the drawings that we have at this point are outdated. So
Maybe you can hold on to the last set that was recommended to the planning commission, not the initial submittals.
What really we had was page 6 came back from the one multiple times. Everything else was kind of the same. They didn't update several of them.
We do have electronic copies of every document you have. So if you accidentally shredded something and then you're like, oh, I wanted to see where it is, we do have a record of PDF.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. Thanks, Jim. Neil?
No comment.
Mark?
Nothing further, thank you.
Julie?
No.
Okay. All right. I would entertain a motion to adjourn at this point.
I so move.
Second.
Second.
All in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. We stand adjourned.
Can
Thank
I
you,
ask
everyone.
who was the second?
Me, I think.
Yeah,
Okay.
Yes,
it was you, Bob.
fine.
Got it.
All right. Well, we did it before 10 o'clock, guys. So anyway, you guys have a wonderful Memorial Day weekend.